Star Wars Legends is home to some of the most powerful beings and Force users in all of the mythos in the galaxy far, far away, but few stand out in regard to their insurmountable power like that of Vader's apprentice, Starkiller Galen Marek. The Force Unleashed video games gave us our first impression of this character that displayed the Force in such a staggering way, making him easily to be a contender for the most powerful Force user in terms of potential in the entirety of the Star Wars mythos. Of course, this is Legends continuity, where the power of the Force as well as characters who wield it are incredibly scaled up, and far more powerful than we see them on screen as well as in Star Wars canon. However, Galen Marek seems to really stand out in our minds even in Legends continuity, mostly due to the fact that we get to see his story unfold firsthand, as well as take part in seeing his absurd power in the Force. The question we want to answer today though is, why was Galen Marek so powerful, with him able to match the power of Darth Sidious himself for a few brief moments as a young boy, as well as displaying feats in the Force that would put him on par with the Chosen One, Anakin? What caused Galen to be able to use the Force in this manner? Galen Marek was the son of Kento Marek, a Jedi that had managed to escape Order 66 and was hiding out on the world of Kashyyyk. It wouldn't be long, however, before Lord Vader became aware of the presence of a Jedi on the world, deciding to take a personal trip to Kashyyyk. In many continuities, Vader's campaign on Kashyyyk was a legendary staple in his first few years within his suit. As we know, this trip was what got him first mentioned to the wider galaxy on the HoloNet, and how Obi-Wan Kenobi found out that Anakin was still alive. Well, here on Kashyyyk, Vader had found and defeated the Jedi Kento Marek, and seemingly killed him. After this fact, he was disarmed of his lightsaber, flying out of his grip and into the hands of, surprisingly, a small, young boy that was nearby. This being Galen Marek. The boy had no idea what he was even doing, simply acting out of pure fear. Vader could immediately sense the boy's massive natural affinity for the Force. Vader would then decide to take Galen and keep him a secret from the Empire, and especially from Sidious. For 20 years, Vader would train Galen Marek and turn him into the being known as Starkiller. This is where we can start to deconstruct the secret of Starkiller's insane power. Not only was he naturally gifted, but he was also trained specifically by Vader, and Vader's idea of training borderlines on straight out torture. What we know from Vader's teaching style when he trained the Inquisitors is that he was purely combat focused, foregoing all other facets of the Force while training his young Dark Jedi. He would torture his students and even take something from them to teach them the meaning of pain or loss, whether that be an eye or a limb, just to teach them this pure meaning. To suffer was to be a dark side wielder. Of course, this task was to train the Inquisitors, not something he did voluntarily though, but a task set upon him by the Emperor. As such, it can be reasonably assumed that he didn't care much for any of the Inquisitors, and simply did enough to make them at least adequate for fighting escaped Jedi. Starkiller, however, was a project that Vader cared very much about, and as such, he had far more invested an approach in his training, which most likely meant even more torture for this young Sith to be. Vader personally constructed a droid known as Proxy that was able to change its appearance as well as combat style to mimic that of Jedi. The droid was equipped with armor that could reflect blaster blades, boosting its legs to move more quickly, and even gravity repulsors to mimic telekinesis as well as the Force. Starkiller was drilled endlessly by Vader using Proxy, and over time, he became a pure instrument of destruction and war. Galen appreciated this training and sought to actually make himself more powerful by self-inflicting this torture in Vader's absence. He too was obsessed with becoming as powerful as possible. On one occasion, he had Proxy chain him up and leave him in a room by himself, depriving him of sleep or nourishment until he was able to telekinetically construct his lightsaber. This was all by his own choice. He also spent a great deal of time staring into the red blade of his lightsaber and meditating on his hatred and pain. Galen did this in order to fully envelop himself in the dark side, sensing that deep down within, his allegiance may not be entirely dark side in nature, and therefore he attempted to dispel this lighter half, in a sense being the opposite of a Mace Windu. Despite this though, there is still a fact that remains. Many Sith were naturally talented as the Sith exclusively took those who showed great promise, and many Sith were trained in gruesome means. Many Sith had gone down the exact same path of that of Galen Marek and were only a fraction of the power. So, what makes Starkiller so different? Well, one thing to consider is that most Force users, Jedi and Sith alike, are usually taught some form of restraint. Whether for moral reasons or otherwise, every Force user has an innate sense to keep some part of themselves restrained unless they really need to. Sith learned restraint because they failed to teach their apprentices everything they knew out of fear, and Jedi taught restraint to teach them that they were not the greatest beings and that they purely served the Force. Starkiller, though, was taught the opposite, as he used all of his power 100% of the time. Starkiller never held back, and because of this, the Force was able to flourish and swarm within him. The dark side appreciated and responded well to his allowance to be swept up within the eye of the storm, and use its power indiscriminately. He was a pure avatar and tool for the dark side. Because of this, we watch Starkiller constantly use his power at maximum output, which shows him performing feats of telekinesis such as stopping TIE fighters mid-flight and even redirecting an entire Star Destroyer into the ground, though not without a lot of difficulty. Galen, or Starkiller, was also very adept at Force lightning, rivaling even the power of Darth Sidious. He could chain lightning between targets, and even channel it in his lightsaber to unleash many different kinds of lightning attacks. Although obviously game features, these attacks are also featured in the Force Unleashed novelizations. Starkiller even displayed power in Terminus, being able to absorb blaster fire, explosions, as well as others' Force lightning. During his battle with Vader and Sidious on the Death Star, he was able to contend with and even defeat both Sith Lords, as well as release a wave of energy that put a large hole in the Death Star. While it is not clear exactly what in Starkiller's lineage made him so incredibly strong in the Force, though there is obviously something with both of his parents being Jedi, we can definitely say that he is worth mentioning in the roster of powerful Force beings, and makes us wonder if Anakin or Sidious conducted themselves in a similar manner, not having any restraint or any focus on the greater aspects of the Force, such as attaining knowledge or new abilities, and purely focused on its destructive capabilities and its combat capabilities. What could they have achieved? So friends, what do you think of this explanation? Were you wondering how Galen Marek grew so powerful in the Force despite his apparent not very notable lineage? Do you think that this is a valid explanation as to his incredible strength in the Force? If not, what are your other theories? Drop a comment down below. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Now my friends, may the Force be with you and have a great day.